No one remembered the last time Earth's sky had truly been dark, even at midnight. You could still see the faint gleam of alien sentinels hanging far beyond the stratosphere. The treaty enforcers, orbiting silently like glass blades pointed down at humanity. They weren't weapons, not technically, but every nation on Earth knew what happened when a species broke the Galactic Armistice Code. The rule was simple. Humanity was never to build warships again. That ban had been signed 80 years ago, after the Europa uprising, when a human fleet, built in secret from Mars ice tunnels, nearly tore apart a council convoy. The retaliation had been swift, surgical, and unforgettable. A single alien dreadnought erased 10 cities in an afternoon. The message was clear. The era of human warfare was over, or so they thought. Chapter 1. The Ban and the Blueprint Captain. Sarah Kellen had once commanded the last of the sanctioned orbital defense vessels, the UNS Cormorant, a ship stripped of all weapons after the treaty took effect. Now she stood on a cold titanium platform 3 miles beneath Nevada, watching the hum of an illegal reactor light up the cavern walls. The glow painted her face in eerie blue as she whispered, "It works." Beside her, Dr. Aaron Pike, the project's chief engineer, adjusted his glasses with trembling hands. "Power stable. Radiation bleed within limits. We're actually doing it," Sarah exhaled, part awe, part fear. "We're doing the one thing the universe told us never to try again." The project was called Daedalus. Officially, it was listed as a deep space research platform. Unofficially, it was humanity's first step toward reclaiming the stars on their own terms. The ship they were building, the Archangel, wasn't supposed to exist. It was being assembled in silence by machines that never saw the surface. Its materials shipped in fragments through legitimate channels, disguised as agricultural satellites and mining arrays. Only 30 people in the entire world knew the truth. The blueprints had come from a name no one expected, a man dead for 40 years. Commander Nathan Hale, one of the Europa mutineers. Sarah had found his encrypted logs buried deep within old UN data archives, detailing a prototype engine that could manipulate quantum inertia, a drive capable of moving a ship faster and more efficiently than any known alien vessel. Hale called it the Whisper. He'd died before it was built, but his dream hadn't. Aaron's voice broke through the hum of the reactor. "If the Council finds out about this—" "They won't," Sarah said sharply. "We keep the project off-grid, we erase every trail. This isn't rebellion, Aaron. This is insurance." He gave her a look that mixed admiration and dread. Insurance against what? She didn't answer, because deep down she didn't know. She only knew that humanity was living on borrowed time, and something about the quiet, orbiting sentinels had begun to change. Their formation patterns had shifted, as if watching, waiting. And then came the signal. A faint transmission, caught by a derelict listening station on Titan. 6 words in a language only Earth's linguists could barely translate. "They are coming for your son." Sarah didn't sleep that night. She called for full containment of Daedalus, doubled the encryption protocols, and sent for the one person she swore she'd never see again. Admiral Marcus Vale, the man who'd signed the surrender 80 years ago. He arrived the next morning, old but unbowed, wearing the kind of uniform that had once made the stars tremble. "Captain Kellen," he said, voice low, "you've built what we swore never to build again." "Yes, sir," Sarah replied. "But this time, it's not to fight them. It's to save us." Vale studied the schematics of the Archangel for a long moment. "Then let's hope to God they never find out." He paused before turning away. "Because if they do, Captain, we won't just be breaking the treaty. We'll be lighting the fuse for extinction." The Nevada cavern became the heart of a secret nation. They called it Sanctum, though no map marked its location. The air inside always smelled faintly of ozone and oil, and the silence between machinery roars carried the weight of history. 3 months after Admiral Vale's arrival, the Archangel stood suspended above the abyss, a half-finished titan of steel and quiet rebellion. Its hull shimmered like black glass under industrial floodlights. Every panel, every curve, was designed to deflect the eyes of alien surveillance drones. Sarah Kellen watched it from the platform, her breath visible in the cold air. "It looks wrong without weapons," Aaron murmured beside her. "Feels naked," Sarah smiled grimly. "That's the point. They scan for war signatures. Plasma coils, railgun mounts, antimatter nodes. We can't give them a reason to look closer." Aaron raised a brow. "And when they do?" Her eyes followed the workers welding the quantum spine. "Then we make sure what they find isn't something they understand." Vale joined them moments later, leaning heavily on his cane. He looked old enough to have seen the first moon landing, but his eyes were still those of a soldier. "Intel from Mars colony," he said quietly. "The Sentinels are repositioning. Orbit patterns changed again. Tighter. As if triangulating," Sarah folded her arms. "They suspect us?" "They suspect something," Vale replied. "Could be solar radiation scans. Could be you and your damn ship. Hard to say which." The three stood in silence for a long moment. Only the steady pulse of the reactor filled the void. Then Aaron said what none of them wanted to admit. "If they come before we finish, we won't have time to launch." Sarah looked up at the Archangel, her voice low, steady. "Then we'll fly it unfinished." The construction accelerated. Shifts doubled. Oxygen scrubbers burned hot and red. By the 8th month, Archangel had a functioning engine, a full AI core, and a stealth field strong enough to fool orbital sensors for 23 seconds. Not much, but enough to hide a launch window. They'd built something else, too. Hidden inside a network of decommissioned orbital satellites were fragments, pieces of other ships. Not warships, not yet, but modular craft capable of linking together into something larger. They called it the Ghost Fleet. Each segment was disguised as mining or atmospheric maintenance hardware, programmed to remain inert until a signal activated their true identities. No single piece broke the treaty, but together they would form the first human fleet in almost a century. It was Vale's idea. "We've always been good at pretending to be small," he told Sarah one night. "That's how we survive, until we decide not to." 2 weeks later, the first sign of trouble came from Titan. A listening post, the same one that had received the earlier alien signal, suddenly went dark. No distress call, no transmission, just silence. Within 48 hours, the Council Sentinels shifted again, moving into direct synchronous orbit over North America. Their silvery hulls glowed in the night sky like moons made of glass. Humanity was being watched. Inside Sanctum, panic brewed in whispers. Some engineers demanded evacuation. Others argued they should destroy Archangel before it brought the wrath of the Council. Aaron confronted Sarah in her quarters, his face pale. "We can't win this. If they know—" "They don't," she interrupted. "You don't know that." His voice cracked. "You saw what they did to Europa. You were 10 years old when they erased the fleet. You think they'll hesitate this time?" Sarah looked at him. Really looked. The fear, the anger, the helplessness she felt herself. Then she said softly, "You think I'm building a weapon, Aaron? I'm not. I'm building a warning." He frowned. "A warning? If they're coming for our son, if that signal meant what I think it did, then every species in this sector will burn, not just us. The Council thinks it's us they have to control. They're wrong." Aaron's voice lowered. "You think there's something worse out there?" Sarah nodded. "And it's already on its way. The night before launch, Admiral Vale gathered the 30 of them in the central bay. He stood beneath the half-lit shadow of the Archangel, his voice echoing off the steel. 80 years ago, he began, we signed away our right to defend ourselves. We did it to survive. And we did survive. But survival is not living. It's waiting to die slower." He turned to the ship. "Tonight we stop waiting." Sarah felt the weight of his words like gravity itself. Vale continued, quieter now. "They said humans couldn't be trusted with warships, that we were too volatile, too emotional, too ambitious. They said we couldn't build one. And maybe they were right. Maybe we're not building a warship." He looked up, his voice hardening. "Maybe we're building something worse, something they'll never understand. A human dream with an engine." The lights dimmed. The reactor hummed like a heartbeat. Sarah walked to the bridge of Archangel for the first time. The panels glowed to life, one by one, tactile, minimal, functional. Status? She asked. Aaron's voice came through the comm. Quantum inertia drive charged. Stealth window in 12 minutes. Once we're airborne, we'll have 23 seconds before satellite reacquisition. Then let's make history, she said. The cavern roof began to open, stones sliding away like ancient armor plates. Above, the night sky waited. Indifferent, infinite. Vale saluted her from the control deck. Godspeed, Captain. The Archangel rose, dust swirling in her wake. Engines whispered to life. Not thunder, but silence. As though space itself bent to let her through. For 23 seconds, humanity disappeared from every alien eye in the sky. When sensors recalibrated, Archangel was gone. Only a faint shimmer lingered above the Nevada desert. Out beyond Mars' orbit, deep in the shadow of the asteroid belt, Archangel drifted, invisible, alive, and very much human. Sarah stood before the viewport, staring into a sea of stars she hadn't seen since her academy days. Aaron approached, pale but smiling faintly. We did it, she nodded. For now, Vale's voice echoed from the command chair. Titan's last transmission wasn't a false alarm. Something did come for our son. He pulled up the holographic projection. A swarm of signatures, blacker than space, moving fast and silent toward the inner system. Sarah felt her stomach drop. They're not council ships. No, Vale said grimly. And for the first time in a century, the universe is about to learn why humans were never allowed to build warships. Space had always been silent. But this silence felt wrong. Captain Sarah Kellen stood at the Archangel's forward viewport, watching the swarm advance. Not ships, not life forms, but something else entirely. Thousands of black specks drifting in formation, absorbing light itself. The stars behind them blinked out one by one, as though swallowed whole. Aaron whispered, "That's not a fleet. That's a storm." Admiral Vale's jaw tightened. They're stripping matter, eating it. Every asteroid they touch disintegrates. Sarah felt her pulse hammer. The ship's AI, Eidolon, flickered across the holotable, a shifting, ethereal outline of light and code. "Captain," it said in a calm, human-like tone. "Energy readings consistent with subatomic consumption. They are not conventional vessels. They are harvesting stellar mass." "Toward the sun," Sarah murmured. "They're coming for our system's heart." Aaron turned to her. "The council must know. We have to warn them." "We can't," Vale replied. "The second we transmit, they'll trace our signal. They'll find us and destroy us before they even look at the swarm." "So we do nothing?" Aaron demanded. Sarah shook her head. "No, we prove them wrong." For decades, the Galactic Council had enforced peace through fear. They'd disarmed humanity, caged them under the illusion of safety. And now the cage was closing, not by the Council's hand, but by something far older, far hungrier. Sarah opened Hale's old data logs again, the ones that had inspired Daedalus. Among his encrypted notes was a phrase he'd written near the end. "If humanity ever builds again, build not to destroy, but to survive the impossible." That was Hale's real design. The whisper drive wasn't a weapon. It was a shield, a manipulation of gravitational harmonics that could distort the very laws of motion. Eidolon analyzed the schematics, its tone sharpening. "Captain, the drive's capacity could create a localized gravity sink, enough to disrupt the swarm's trajectory." Aaron's eyes widened. "You mean lure them away from the sun?" Sarah nodded. "If we generate a singularity shadow, a gravity signature strong enough to mimic a star, they'll follow it." Vale frowned. "And when they reach us?" She met his gaze. "Then we make sure they never leave." They began recalibrating the drive, manually overriding safeties, channeling power from every deck. The hull thrummed like a heartbeat under stress. Aaron's hands shook as he worked. "This much energy, it'll tear the ship apart." Sarah placed a hand on his shoulder. "If it keeps Earth alive, it's worth it." Vale's voice came over the comm, steady, resolute. "If this works, Captain, the Council will see it. They'll know we built a warship." "Then let them watch," Sarah said. "Let them see what impossible looks like." Archangel moved into the swarm's path, its stealth field dropping for the first time. Across the solar system, hidden Council probes turned their glassy eyes toward the disturbance, toward the single human vessel daring to ignite its engines against the void. "Drive core charged," Eidolon announced. "Ready on your mark." "Do it," Sarah said. The whisper drive came alive. Space folded inward, light bending like molten glass. The ship screamed, not in sound, but through the distortion of reality itself. A false gravity well bloomed ahead, massive enough to mimic a dying sun. The swarm reacted instantly. Thousands of dark entities veered, converging toward the illusion, drawn like moths to gravity's flame. Their formation spiraled into a vortex, beautiful and horrifying. But as they closed in, the Archangel began to tear apart. "Hull stress at 120%, Aaron shouted. Sparks rained from the ceiling. "Hold it steady," Sarah barked, the AI's voice fractured with static. Gravitational stability collapsing in. "Eidolon!" Sarah cut in sharply. "Transfer all control to manual." The AI hesitated. "Captain, now!" The hologram flickered out. The ship groaned, and Sarah took the helm herself. She could feel it, the drive's impossible pull, the distortion twisting reality. The Archangel was no longer flying. It was anchoring space around itself, becoming the gravity it created. "Marcus," she said quietly, "detonate the secondary core when I give the word." Vale's tone was calm, almost gentle. "And where will you be, Captain?" She smiled faintly. "Where I belong, with my ship." He paused. "You don't have to—" "Yes, I do," she said. "Because someone has to steer humanity out of its own shadow." The swarm reached them, 1,000,000 obsidian fragments, writhing, merging, colliding, forming something like a black ocean devouring light. When they touched the gravity shadow, the illusion collapsed inward, trapping them in the event horizon's pull. "Now!" Sarah shouted. Vale pressed the trigger. The secondary core ignited. A pulse of white light expanded from the Archangel's center, warping everything within 1,000 kilometers. For a single impossible instant, the ship became a mirror, reflecting not light, but intention. And then, silence. When the distortion cleared, the swarm was gone. No wreckage, no trace. Just the void, quiet once more. Where Archangel had been, there was only a faint halo of drifting plasma, a ghostly aurora that shimmered blue and gold before fading into nothing. Hours later, Council fleets arrived, summoned by the impossible energy surge. They found only silence and a single automated beacon, transmitting one message on an open frequency. "Humanity requests no pardon. Humanity requires no permission. We proved it couldn't be done, and so we did it anyway, for the first time in a century." The galaxy heard the human voice not as a plea, but as a declaration. The Council stared into the empty coordinates where Archangel had vanished, and they understood too late. Humanity had never truly built a warship. They'd built a promise, a vessel born not to destroy, but to defy extinction itself. Months later, when the Sentinels withdrew and the ban was quietly erased, Earth's night sky grew darker again. Children in the deserts of Nevada looked up and sometimes saw a faint shimmer above the clouds, a pale blue ring that came and went with the seasons. No one could explain it, but those who remembered the old wars, the old treaties, and the old fears. They called it by one name only, the halo of the Archangel, and every generation after would look up at that silent glow and whisper the same words. They said we couldn't do it. We proved them right,